What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Offroad Outlaws. And what I'm going to do today is give you guys an in-depth tutorial on suspension tuning. Now, I did this once before, but it was just a kind of quick, basic guide, just kind of quickly going over what everything does. But today I'm going to give you guys a little more in-depth and a little more, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more fluent kind of flow to it. Last time it was kind of just all over the place. But we'll start it out with axle width. Axle width is going to obviously widen your axle, if you choose to make it wider, which for like off-road build or for, taller builds, what it's going to do is lower your center of gravity a little bit and give you more stability when you're cornering and stuff like that, especially in a lifted truck. Like this, when I do lifted mud trucks and stuff, I usually make it like a point 0.6 uh, axle width just to kind of even it out without it looking too wide or anything like that. Just gives you a wider wheelbase. Just, it really helps with lift kits and stuff like that. But then we got damping. Now, damping controls how fast your springs compress, meaning the further left it is, the faster it compresses, making it more bouncy when hitting bumps. The further right, the slower the compression, making it stiffer when hitting bumps. Now, as you can see, I like to put it around 4K, but not everybody does that. But I will show you guys real quick when it's all the way down, that's how it does. If it's all the way up, and I go and do that same thing. Oh, cat. Okay. Sorry about that. But see, the compression rate is a lot, slower. As you can see, it's not bouncing. It's taking it that it does weird stuff like that. But when it lands, it goes a lot slower. I like to keep it around 4,000. Gives it a good balance. Now, if we go back here to the rear, which is a solid axle type, we have leaf springs on here, and this just changes the mount height. As you can see, it goes, the left you go, it goes further down, and right, it goes farther up. I'm just going to try to put that back in the middle there. Okay, go back to the front here. Now, what shocks do, shocks are literally just going to change this visual look to the shocks, as you can see. Now, there's only really three options. There's those, and those. None of them make any real difference to how the vehicle handles or anything like that. And then shock size, the same thing. It doesn't do any performance, changes or anything. It just simply changes the size of the shocks. And basically, those are just all on your personal preference if you like bigger shocks or if you like smaller shocks. I usually just throw it up a little bit, make it, a little bit bigger to where they're not pencil thin shocks. And that's about it, really. Then we got stiffness, and obviously, stiffness is going to change how, soft or stiff your suspension is. But what it also does is, when you, well, as you can see, turning it down to the left, making the softer, it makes you lose static travel. You still have overall travel, but you keep the same static travel, but you increase flex with a softer suspension. Now, if you turn it higher, you're going to get more static travel, but you're going to lose a lot of flex. And I honestly don't remember where I just had this sitting, so it's just going to sit somewhere around there. Yeah, somewhere around there should be alright. I'll figure out where I had it sitting before later on. Now, travel, obviously, is the where you get your lift from. If you turn it all the way to the left, you're going to have, minimal lift kit, minimal travel in your suspension, which is, well, if you have a low travel, you're not going to have much flex, even with the stiffest or the loosest of suspensions. But what it also does, just so you guys know, travel will also raise your center of gravity on your truck as it would in real life. But in case you don't know anything about that in real life, there is the center of gravity to the vehicles on here, and raising the travel raises the center of gravity, thus causing a higher chance of flipping when going around corners. Now we'll go back over here to the rear suspension, and we have these things called spring brackets. Well, it just says spring brackets, but it's spring brackets upper mount. Now what this does is change you from having a spring under axle to a spring over axle, which in real life, it going to a spring over axle setup would allow you to have more overall travel in your suspension. It allows you to have a bigger lift on it and still keep that suspension. In the game, however, it does not make any difference to your performance. And the last thing, almost the last thing, there's rear steering. Now, rear steering, just think of the numbers as a what's it called? A percentage. I need to change to my rear because I don't want to change it on the game itself, because I'm going to use this truck to do that little thing, the little tune here in a second. But rear steer, just think of this as a percentage. The higher percentage it goes, the more rear steer you have, obviously. In rear steer, what that means is your rear tires are going to turn with your front tires, allowing you to have turn tighter corners, stuff like that on, like really tight trails, or, monster trucks have rear steer to kind of help them, navigate that big ass truck around. Now, personally, I usually don't run any rear steer, but when I do run it, I usually like to go up to about 30% or 0.30. And what that'll do is allow you to turn, corners a little sharper when you're going trail riding and stuff like that. And the last two things here are brake type and axle type. Now, axle type is going to change you from having the normal big round diff, to like a little small flat diff, which also sets you up for these brakes here, which, as you can see, we have these regular disc brakes. And what this does is change it to, I believe it's a diff brake or an axle brake. I don't know exactly what it's called in real life, but that's what it does. The brake type changes you from that to, the diff brake. So when you change your axle type, you should change it accordingly, because if you leave the axle type normal, the regular one, and change to that little diff brake, it doesn't quite look right. It doesn't even attach. So if you change one, you should change the other in the back here. Now, when you are tuning your vehicle, I would suggest anything you do to the rear or the front axle, or the front axle, you do it to the other, because you want your builds to be, even. Unless, of course, you want to go with, a little bulldogged or sissy lift, whatever the fuck you want to call it. If you want to do that bullcrap stance, you can do that too. Or if you want to do it drag stance, do that. But as far as stiffness, damping, and axle width go, for the most part, you want to make sure those are even on front and back. Now, I did not need to go all the way back, because it doesn't really matter which vehicle I do it on. I messed the vehicle up doing that. That's cool. But now I'm going to give you guys a quick little tune for the solid axle type. Something I like to do when I buy a new vehicle on the game before I decide to actually upgrade it and everything like that. When I'm not doing a stock truck challenge, that is. Now with the wheel radius, if you guys are wondering, that's just all on. I mean, you make your tires how you make tires, basically. Obviously I do have videos up on, the difference in tire size makes. So if you guys are wondering on that one, I have a video up. Smaller tires do, in fact, give you more speed than the bigger tires. Well, more acceleration, that is. Now, this is what I like to do with my stock trucks. When I first get them, I like to raise the travel all the way up without, when you don't have any money to, say, buy, upgrades for your suspension. I just like to pull the travel all the way up, giving you a little bit bigger lift kit. The stiffness, I normally leave the stiffness alone, or if anything, I will lower it just to give me some more flex throughout the trails. I'll just lower it all the way, like I said, not all the way, but just all the way that you can. I'll usually change my spring brackets because I do like to have a spring over axle conversion on my vehicles. But I mean that's once again because it doesn't really have a different, or it doesn't, that itself doesn't make a difference. I usually leave my shocks alone, and then I go to damping, and I usually turn it up to about 22800, which is the max you can just change it. And then I also do it with axle width. I'll widen the axles just as much as you can. And I'll go back through these once again for you guys and show you guys, in case you missed it, what they're at. And it's just a simple build. Now, I mean, obviously my tires, I upgraded them because I turned this thing into a mud truck. But I'll make these a little bit smaller. What I normally do for, like this particular truck, I usually turn it down a little bit, which that's about what you can change it to. Change it stock. I'll show you guys what the stock radius looks like. Well, actually, I don't have to do that because you guys know what the stock radius looks like. So, okay, my wheel radius is pretty much about even on both front and back. So, that's pretty much what I do to a stock truck. And it gives it a good look to it, with just a stock suspension, not upgrading it or anything. Whoop. My tires are just not necessarily stock tire size or anything like that, but they're close. It's close to a stock tire size, so we'll go with that one. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys did enjoy this little more in-depth tuning tutorial, and I hope it helps you guys out in the long run. Hopefully my audio is not too laggy or anything. Hopefully it's not lagged at all in this video. But until next time, guys, I will see you all in the next one. Exo Froggy out.